Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Soldiers of Cinema podcast. I'm Clark Coffey, and with me is Mr. Cullen McFader.
Hello.
I'm going to do this like a WWF announcer.
Oh
no, who was
Let's get ready to
the
rumble.
boxing? But that was boxing, right? That was.
Yes,
I remember
yeah.
when I was a kid and I used to watch Mike Tyson boxing. That guy would come out, and it was like you just knew you were in for a 2-minute long fight, basically.
Yeah.
And you'd get super excited. I remember my dad and I would make like nachos and popcorn and get everything together, and then Mike Tyson would knock whoever he was.
Well,
boxing
my
in like
Papa
90
was
seconds.
The Canadian boxing champion, so there you go.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's right, Cullen. It's just, I'm telling you, it's just you've got this colorful, rich, textured life and family. It's amazing. So. And good for that, because you're actually going to be kind of the topic of this episode, is episode 39 here, and it's going to be a different type of episode for us.
A little bit shorter too.
A little bit shorter, but and we may end up doing a series of these, but we have a really unique and interesting opportunity. So Cullen is currently in pre-production on a film that he's getting ready to shoot, and we thought that this would be a great opportunity to, in almost real time here, discuss his process and experiences with this film. So for anybody out there who's interested to kind of hear firsthand how films are made, or somebody out there who's an aspiring filmmaker would like to maybe pick up some tips and tricks on how to get things done on a low budget. But why don't you kind of start things off, Cullen, by kind of setting the stage for what's the scope of your project? Is it a short? Is it a feature? What genre are you looking at? Kind of give us a scope for what you're putting together, and maybe tell us a little bit about the story, so we kind of have some, at least a summary to kind of hold in our mind as far as what you're getting ready to get on film, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so the movie is called Daylight again. It's a feature. It's my first feature. And the basic plot is that there's this woman named Maggie, and she's kind of at she's hit a dead end in life. She's in trouble with the police. She's kind of run out all her relationships with her friends, and her family has kind of disowned her. And she's desperate for, basically, at this point, just even shelter. And she has no money. And she winds up running into her old ex-boyfriend, Peter, who she basically used to run these, circuits with. And he was kind of the one that got her into this life of crime. He's kind of put together now. He's like gone straight and has, a beautiful house and stuff like that. And so she kind of figures, I'm going to use this as my advantage and go up and live with him. He invites her up. But of course, not all is as it seems. And Peter's kind of intentions aren't really as altruistic as he first kind of,
as a
proposed to her, as a first seemed. So that's kind of the basic plot. It's based off of, very, very loosely based off of a short film that a friend of mine and I did 2 years ago. So right at the beginning of 2019, I think it was, called Hector. And that movie was, again, pretty much no comparison to this movie now, but it was definitely the seed that kind of sprouted into this movie, to use a flowery metaphor.
Nice. Good work there.
So yeah, it definitely is scope wise, really small scale, primarily one location.
Okay, so similar a little bit to Shallow Grave, the film that we just covered our last episode. And give us an idea. So what roughly is the size of your cast and crew on this project?
So we've got 2 leads.
Okay.
They are kind of the main, of course, main players. And then there are 2 secondary characters that have scenes that aren't huge. They're not major scenes, but they are kind of the 2 other characters that have some dialogue.
Okay, so some couple supporting actors.
So they're supporting, yeah. And then there are I'd say 6 other actors that are really just only momentary actors that come in and just kind of say a few lines and things like that.
Gotcha.
So there's about 9-10 people total, 9 or 10
and
total.
Crew size?
Crew size is about, I'd say 8. I think I've got 8 people. Don't have the exact number on me at the moment.
So this will be helpful for people to maybe learn a little bit more about. So tell me, with those 8 people, you've got a constrained budget. How many shoot days, real quick, are you looking at?
11. Yeah.
Okay.
So I've scheduled out 11 shoot days.
So you got to shoot a lot in a really short amount of time.
Yeah.
So tell me, what 8 positions did you fill? You've got you only have so many people. So what positions did you fill, and share a little bit too about where you've kind of doubled or even tripled up? Because obviously with only
my
8
good
people,
friend, my good friend Adam is kind of my right hand man.
Okay.
He's basically the first AD, first AC, sort of like script supervisor in a way. So
Okay.
he's going to be, running slate, checking the shot list to make sure everything's done. And he'll also be writing keeping track of like, okay, take 3
Takes, okay.
was good. And so he's kind of doing, he's really going to be essentially my
And
assistant
just to
director.
clarify, so you're directing, obviously.
Yes,
But,
yeah.
but are you going to be operating?
Yep, I'll be operating. Yeah,
So
I'll
you'll be
directing,
operating, and will you be basically acting as your own cinematographer then as
yeah,
well?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the reason for that, and this is something that I wouldn't recommend for a lot of people, but I am super familiar with,
Yeah,
like
you're
I
very
primarily
technical.
work as a cinematographer, and I like that's kind of my professional, like where I
Right.
the money that I make in film is primarily doing that.
Yes.
And what I realized during pre-production was that to make everything really efficient, to keep everything both low budget and, again, to make sure that everything's kind of streamlined, that I wasn't going to use a director. I was going to kind of take the PTA approach to it, which is make it sort of a group effort. So I've got, I think of things when I direct, and even from the writing phase, I think of things super visually, and like not only framing wise, but like I know from the moment that I write a page as a script how that's going to be shot,
and now did
how
you
it's
write
going to be
this?
lit.
Did you wrote this, or was
Yes,
this...
so I did. Yeah, so
Okay.
it was. So again, it came from this this short film, and was originally much more similar to that short film. And I'm comfortable saying that, because now if you go back to the short film and go, I know where this movie's going to go, you probably don't, because it is so different. But
Okay.
originally was very, very
It's
similar.
just inspired from.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
inspired
So
by,
it was written. The plot of the short film was a guy goes up to his cousin's cottage or cousin's house for like a weekend to stay there, and his cousin's gone for the night, so he's there alone with his roommate, and then the roommate turns out to be a monster. That's the plot of the short film. Again, nothing related to that in this version. But the first draft was very related to that. It was very much just an expanded version of that, and I had written it with the guy that I did the short film with and 2 others. We were kind of the writing team. I was doing the screenwriting, but they were kind of the people that I would like bounce off of, and we would have writing meetings and kind of come up with, okay, maybe this should go that way. And that was kind of primarily how the script got so altered from what it was to what it is now.
So you had input and feedback.
Yeah,
And you kind of had some people who worked with you on the writing. Okay.
Exactly, yeah. And so then that went on for about a year. I think we started writing, or at least I started like kind of planting the seeds of it and doing the outline and kind of a treatment for it in March of last year. So right when COVID kind of hit, I decided that was like a good time to do that. And then it was written basically, I think the draft that we're going to camera with was finished in like late March of this year. So just over a year of writing, which I think is a pretty decent amount of time.
Yeah.
And, there's also, I think, just to kind of go into that just quickly for a second.
Sure. Yeah.
And for anybody who perhaps is writing their own movie right now and is like at that phase where they're like, the script's done, but I don't feel comfortable.
Well, it's a good question, right? Like how many edits did you go through, and kind of
so there was 6 total drafts.
Okay.
But within those drafts, I would say each of them had about 4 revisions in stages. So probably close to 20 versions of the script that went through, but 6 major drafts were like, draft 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6.
I think
were all
especially
super changed.
I think especially in people who are just starting out, they don't have maybe as much experience. They're in their beginning of their career. I think, I just want to kind of reiterate, without hopefully being too preachy, this is the stage where you can work all day long. You can make as many, you can put as much work into a script as you could possibly imagine. There's no limit, and it doesn't cost you anything but time. This is the only part that if you're the writer, right? If this is your film, this is the only part that doesn't cost you anything. So there's no reason not to put everything you've got into making that script as polished as you can absolutely make it. And I mean, it's, at least for me, and I think probably likely for most people, your best work is not your first draft. It ain't even close. The first draft is where, but I just, I know, especially when I was much younger, people get so excited to shoot. They want to get on set. They want to get a camera. They want to get actors there. And it's, and the scripts are half baked. They go into production with half baked scripts, and it happens a lot. So it's just good to kind of hear that you've spent a year, that you've gone through. I mean, if you take the revisions of each draft, you're over, what, 20, 30 drafts.
Yeah.
It's just important to kind of, set expectations. If you're writing your
And
own
I'm actually
script,
going to be putting all of the drafts online once the movie's done.
Oh,
because
excellent.
I think that it's actually kind of a neat thing to be able to share with people, to sort of go like, look
that's
at
fantastic.
how different every draft. Like if
So
someone
we'll
wants to
do
read
that.
1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 6,
We'll
like,
we'll
1 to
put
6.
we'll link to that through the
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah, once it's
so
out, yeah.
everybody, you can kind of you can actually kind of look at how the story progresses. Thank you
Because
for
it's
doing
what's
that.
incredible is that if you shot, like, I think that's one of the things that the actors that signed on later, I always kind of joke with them and I say, like, if you were to go back and read draft 2 and make that movie, you could make this movie and that movie, and I don't think people would realize that
Wouldn't
they
even
came
be
from
the same
place.
thing. Yeah, I mean, I often won't even find. I mean, if let's say I write an entire script, I may not even get to what I actually really want to get to until 80 pages in, and I take this little nugget almost that I wrote in this first script, and then it's kind of so right. It's be open as a writer to taking just what really works or what really sparks your love for what you're doing in that first draft, and then make that your entire second draft. And you may have to go through several iterations of that. But so to get back to it, so year of writing, so you've got you yourself, you're the writer, you're the director, you're going to operate. And just to be just a little bit of technical, so real quick, tell me what you're going to be operating. What are you going to be shooting
so
with?
I've got I own all of my own gear. I'm a big believer in that, as well as I'm not a really big fan of renting. So I basically worked, a pizza delivery job and a bartending job, and I teach film. And so I was just, a lot of that is just money set aside to buy this stuff. Not cheap, but I think to me, I would much rather have owned that equipment and have been able to call it my own and be able to like take a camera out whenever I want and go and do something, as opposed
shoot
to
every day.
relying on a rental. And exactly. And so I've got no pressure on me to finish something faster because, the rental's running out or something. So it's an Ursa G2, Blackmagic Ursa Mini Pro G2 is what the camera I'm operating on. With a Pictor Cinema Zoom.
Oh, and what
you've got new zoom lenses.
You've got the wide. What is?
The 20 to 55.
And I've got that one
shoot
too. That's
wider.
a great lens, by the way. It's a really great lens.
Yeah, and I'm a big believer in zoom lenses. I think that like, a lot of people kind of scoff at them, and it's like, no, primes only. But I love
I do
zooms
too,
because I think that people, when they get all technical about lenses, they're like, oh, the bokeh is nice, but it's like, that doesn't matter to me. I don't
Not
really
for
care
this
about
level.
the creaminess of a bokeh. I care about I don't have to switch lenses if I'm going from a 20 to a 50.
Absolutely. And at this level, that's important, right? Your ability to reframe, your ability to move fast. It's when you've got 11 days to shoot and you're shooting a feature film, I'm going to guess you're around 190 to 120 pages ish, right?
Yeah, I think 90,
About 90.
I think the last draft was
Okay, so you got 90 pages to shoot in 11 days. I mean, to go back and forth to lens to lens to lens, you're going to save a ton of time. So, so you're shooting with the 20 to 55. You've got the Blackmagic Ursa G2. You've got your own. Tell me what you're going to do with lighting. Are you shooting exteriors, interiors? I think you said it was mostly interiors. Give us an idea
the interiors in the house.
And you've scouted a location. You picked this house, as I understand it, specifically because you knew it would have good lighting.
It's a beautiful house. It is. When I got to this, I actually accidentally scouted it. I went there to stay there for my birthday last year. For I think 5 days with some friends. And I remember and I was already in process of writing this movie at that point. And I remember getting there and being like, I have to shoot this movie here. Because it's just, I have never seen a house that both has so much character inside.
Right.
And the way that the light just, the natural light, and it's almost, of course, will be lighting, but you could shoot a movie without any extra lighting in that movie, and it would still, I think, look beautiful.
Okay, and so let's talk about your additional lighting. So obviously, it's important. I know you've got some of your own lighting, but it's limited to some extent. You're on a small budget, so you've picked a location where the lighting's going to be great. But then how will you be augmenting that? Tell us a little bit about that.
So a big thing for me is kind of like of course, anybody who lights will tell you that accentuation is the key to lighting, which is just looking at the room naturally and then going, okay, I want to play up that part. So like that window, I will put a light over there to bring up that light and to kind of, highlight it a little bit more. But I also sort of I think a lot of movies these days especially are shot with like realism in mind. And I find that to be a little bit boring. So what I usually do, just kind of the way I light, is like I'll light realistically. I'll get a room naturally lit the way I want it. And so if there's like a big window, that's our kind of prime light, the primary source. I'll light around that, and then I start going in and I start cutting things, and I start, accenting things with lights that don't really make sense, that realistically don't make sense. I mean, in terms of
Right.
the actual geography of
Right.
the setup. And so I'll take a look at things like that, and again, just highlight things. Like I described this before, but I'll use it again just for clarification. I kind of land between like a realist and an expressionist in terms of the way I light, where I do like basing things off of reality. I like using real windows and stuff to
Right.
impose
Have your
the
light
lighting
be
on the
motivated,
situation.
but yeah,
And the
by
motivation.
reality.
But at the same time, I do, I never shy away from like playing up the theatrical of the lighting, or really dramatizing light and using light to continue to tell that story
Sure.
in an even more meaningful way than perhaps if it was just realistically lit.
And just in a practical sense, what kit are you going to be?
Yeah, so I've got, again, very cheap lights, but
Yeah.
I've got some newer, how
Yeah.
do you pronounce that name? Light panels. I've got
We all-
one that's
every-
just...
everyone
knows.
everybody who's on a low budget knows them. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know how
yeah.
they're pronounced either. Yeah.
So I've got, two of their light panels. One is like a full RGB, and then one is just a bicolor. So like
LEDs, right?
tungsten-
They're
Yeah,
LEDs.
LED light
Yep.
panels. Then I've got a larger Godox SL60, which is kind of like, it's a daylight only light, but you can of course throw gels over it and stuff.
Sure.
But that light is really going to be used for like, again, kind of the lighting the entire space, and not necessarily singling out certain elements.
Okay, so we'll just
Yeah,
take
sure.
a quick
Do you wanna
pause
pause
here,
there for a
just 1
second?
second.
Yeah, I'll clap so we can see that in the thing. There we go.
But I will be done soon, so just let me know, okay? Thank you so much. Thank you. The vacuum is working? Yes, vacuum is working. Thank you so much. Check it out. Okay. They put a new. Oh, thank you so much. They put a new handle on it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. We'll just do what we can.
Yeah,
The
I'll,
house-
I'll go back to that Godox. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
And,
So, and then if they get loud, what we'll do is we'll just kind of stop here. We can add more to it at another time.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
just see what we can do. I apologize.
No worries.
Okay. Yeah.
So, so I've also got a Godox SL60, which is like a larger daylight rated light. It's not, you can't actually vary the color on it, but of course you can tint it, or
Throw
dim it and
gels,
stuff,
yeah.
and throw gels on. And so that one is very, very bright. And each of these lights is kind of double purpose. So that light during the day, I'm going to have a huge softbox on it, and it's almost going to be a close-up light. So it'll
Okay.
be that softbox will be very, very close to the actors' faces, and will kind of be it provides this really beautiful, soft, sunlight looking light. And then at night, I'm going to throw a Fresnel on that light, and it will be kind of the space light. So it'll be what I light the entire, if like there's a room with no lights
Give you
on.
a base
it'll go-
level of exposure before you
And
start
then-
accenting.
Yeah, and then I can put in those little LED light panels. I've also got a Aperture Mini, like little
Oh, those are
LED mini
great. Yeah,
panel,
those are
which
fantastic.
are fantastic. You can just stick those anywhere. And
Oh, I
I've got
love
like a
those,
clip
yeah.
for those, so I can like put them on a bookshelf or whatever.
Yep.
I'm trying to think if I have any other really major. I think that's pretty much it for lighting.
Okay.
I've got
Do you-
of course.
Do you
my
have
Kia
like
ball.
I mean, you kind of described your philosophy for lighting. I'm curious, do you have like an overall kind of do you have any inspirations? Do you have anything you're kind of shooting for? Is there anything that you could kind of point to just say, you know, I'm looking to light like XYZ or
Yeah.
or-
I as we've talked about when we did our Butch Cassidy episode, my favorite cinematographer is Connie Hall, and I really like the way that Connie Hall bent light, if that makes sense. So what he
Okay.
would do was he would use one powerful light and then just bounce it all over the room, and it would create this really engaging, like, again, it felt natural because it all sort of felt like it was coming from one source. and sort of like one place. But at the same time, it was a great way to be able to, highlight or point out certain things in a shot, with the light without having to set up 1,000 different lights. And so I thought that is a brilliant way of working in this, his separation of foreground to background, and almost lighting like it was black and white still. I think is really, a great way a great philosophy. More contemporary. I'm a big fan of Steve Yedlin. Both in his, like, the way that he does his color processes and things like that in terms of his post-production pipeline, but also the way that he, again, the way that I got that idea again for putting the softbox super close, like a foot from an actor's face, like this really huge softbox,
extremely close, by the way. Just
was him. Like his, if you look at a lot of the BTS of, he most recently did Knives Out. You look at the BTS of that, and it's like these huge sheets of light that are just really close to an actor's face, and it just provides this really beautiful, soft kind of fall off and this wraparound. So I would say that those two are primarily really what I'm going for, lighting wise, and then visually, like just in terms of the general visual language. I'm a huge Hitchcock fan. I've kind of made no secret of that. And Hitchcock really was a late addition to this movie, weirdly enough. The movie originally, when it was being written, was kind of, leaning towards this Texas Chainsaw, kind of Tremors almost tone of like this comedy horror type thing. And then I really, when I got to the sixth draft, realized that I didn't like any of that, and I pulled all of the comedy out of it. I pulled all of the heightened craziness out of it and grounded it and turned it into this like Hitchcock drama thriller.
So it's a drama thriller now.
So now it's much more of a grounded Hitchcock kind of style of thing. Paul Thomas Anderson again. Phantom Thread is a movie that I actually have specifically been
so
looking at and kind of going like, that's a really brilliant way to shoot a scene like that. And and perhaps this is actually a good segue to get into the rehearsal process, because this is everything's related. But to just kind of, I guess, preface that, I wrote a shot list long ago when I'd written the screenplay. I wrote a shot list basically alongside of it. And I've never really had the chance to rehearse before. That's been something that I've always kind of missed out on, both because no budget, it's difficult to get people to be there for more than they need to be. And
reality is, on films, you often don't.
You don't have that time. But I have a viewfinder, a director's viewfinder, an Alan Gordon Mark VB, which is, I honestly, when I bought it, wasn't sure if I'd get much use out of it, and I am so thankful I did, because what I did with the rehearsals over the past weekend, we spent 2 days just rehearsing full days, was that while the actors, so we would do like a read through of the scene, and then I would kind of go through the blocking with them and sort of say like, here's where the camera will be, here's kind of how it's going to be shot. And I was actually able to sit down and like lie down on the floor and get angles up at the actors with my viewfinder. And got to a point where there were scenes that had 13 shots, and I got them down to like 5. Moments that even like scenes that had like 6 shots, and got them down to a single shot, and realized, hey, I can actually play this whole scene out in a master.
Help us understand. Apologize if it kind of feels like we're jumping around a little bit. I will get back to the question of who the remainder of your crew are, but we'll keep following this. Well, it's okay. Yeah, we'll keep following this thread for a bit. So can you help us understand, what was it about when you were writing your shot list and you had, 13 or 8 or whatever it was, setups or shots per scene, and then when you went with your viewfinder to the rehearsal and you got that down to 1 or 3, why do you think that was? What was going on there?
A big part of it is coverage, right? Like you sit down when you're writing a shot list and you're like, oh, I want to make sure that that'll cut with that. And so you're visualizing it in your head, and you go like, well, I might need a shot in between there to just kind of transition those 2 shots to each other, because I think that cut might be too jarring, the angle might be too extreme in terms of the difference of angles, or like just like it might go, is cutting from extreme close up to a wide, is that going to be too weird? Will that gel together? But what I was able to do with this viewfinder was do those cuts in real time. And of course, a viewfinder doesn't record, but I was able to frame the shot while the actors were rehearsing the scene and go, okay, that's shot 1. And then pull out and go, this is shot 2. Those actually work really well together. Or in some circumstances, find a completely new shot. Find it, like there was one scene in about midway through the movie where a character runs back into the kitchen after something happens, and it's kind of this intense moment where she's like out of breath. She's just had this like big moment in the movie, and our second character comes in and is kind of like trying to console her and like what's going on, explain this to me. And so initially it was like, I think 4 or 5 shots of like, there's a shot of her entering, then there's a like medium of the other character coming in, and then it's just kind of a shot reverse shot. And I realized, no, I can actually shoot the entire thing from way back in the kitchen, and changed up the blocking entirely. So now the character comes in and it's like she goes across the screen and then goes back over to the other character. The other character almost comes towards camera, and they do this like do-si-do.
Right.
And
so it sounds like you've moved a little bit from, kind of a focus on, from an editing perspective, you're kind of focused on, keeping the spatial geography clean and trying to make sure that you've got, that you're focused on that to, it looks like, okay, you're not losing that, but now you're able to move into more of like a thematic understanding or a composition of shots, and kind of, I don't need 13 different shots for this conversation. I can actually be a little more fluid and well, I think that's going to make a huge impact on the quality of your film, Yeah,
sure. I think it really was like, there's nothing better than that feeling of excitement of like, after we had done that specific scene that I was just referencing, and we'd gotten it blocked out and we rehearsed it, I think like 5 different times. And I was like, that just elevated that scene so much, like that the scene works so much better and just feels so much better. Or, another big thing about rehearsals is we were able to sit down and sort of go like, that ending, I don't really like the ending of that scene.
So that was going to be my next question.
Yeah, why don't
Did your writing change?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nothing major, like nothing I would say overarching change.
Okay.
But there was definitely moments where it was like, these last 4 lines in the scene, let's just cut all those and let's say that with a look.
Yes.
Like, let's just have this moment end with,
I love to hear that.
Yeah, like the person walking away and just like this silence. Like, I think that can be really, really powerful. And that happened with more than one scene. There's like the movie opens on arguably perhaps like a really emotional moment. I won't get into spoilers, but like it's a very emotionally like rich scene. And we were sitting there, and I was, initially the moment ends with the two of them kind of watching, like one of the characters watching the other one go out the door. And I was like, wait a minute, that will hit so much harder if you don't even watch her. Like if you just like she leaves and you don't even bother to go and watch her leave. So a lot of things like that came out of this rehearsal that, kind of has put me firmly in the camp of, whenever I have the chance to do rehearsals now, I am absolutely taking that. So I was never anti-rehearsal, but I just,
But this really reinforced it. So it sounds like, I mean, you've got your blocking, you've got some writing changes, you've got, setup changes. What about the actors? How did you find? Did you find what do you feel like their experience was?
So so do you mean specifically for the rehearsals?
Correct.
Yes. So they, again, I know both of these actors relatively well. One of them, the lead actress, Rio, much more, we went to high school together, and she's like a really brilliant actress, and I pretty much wrote this role for her.
Okay.
And I think that was really great. And Devin, who plays the second character, Peter, I think having that familiarity with them really helped, but also just to be able to, I think the thing that really helps is doing that initial read through, kind of reading through the scene together and going through like, okay, this is where the camera's going to be. This is kind of how the blocking went in my head. Letting them run through that on their own a bunch so that they can kind of explore those characters while I'm almost just sort of like doing shots by myself as they run through it. And then doing one final kind of run through, 1 or 2 final run throughs where we're actually like, I give notes. I'm like, okay, this shot actually works really well, so let's change this thing up. And then they're able to, again, the advantage of being there in person, and so much better than doing it over Zoom or something naturally, is that when I was changing lines, I was able to say, like, what do you think you would say there? Like, how are you playing that?
Did you work on performance much? Was performance a part of
I mean,
this,
there was like, if you look at the screenplay, that like my actual copy of the screenplay, there's a ton of notes about just like, let's try for, again, for example, there was one scene in the movie where when one of the third characters comes in, and initially, even in the way that it was written, he was playing it very interested in the conversation, like he was engaged in the conversation and wanted to be there. And there was just something that wasn't clicking about it, and it wasn't any fault of the actor, but it was more so just like the way it was written. I was like, I don't really think that should be it. Like, why don't we try it so that you are completely disinterested? Like, why don't we play this scene as though you want like there's nothing more that you want than to get out of this situation and just to leave.
Right.
And we played it like that, and suddenly it clicked, and suddenly it was so much more like fluid, and there was a lot more, even though I say that I took a lot of the comedy out of it, there's still like tidbits of comedy. And
Right.
I'm very much, again, a big fan of Bong Joon-ho as well, who can have like really dramatic scenes, but still like there's these little comedic moments in them.
Sure.
So I very much like that kind of style of filmmaking, that tone. So being able to play with that just performance-wise and
Are there
nail
any
those
drop
moments.
kicks?
Yes, that's
There
actually
are?
the whole movie.
You have
the
drop
movie's
kicks
called
in your
Drop
film?
Kick. Can you imagine?
That you know what? I'm sold.
Yeah.
Is it too late to invest? So rehearsal you worked on. It sounds like you refined a lot of things in the rehearsal. So let's move back then to kind of the crew. So who else then do you have on set? You've got your right hand man. And refresh my memory, basically like an AD plus what else?
AD, AC, again,
Okay.
he's someone that me and him have known each other for ages, and we've worked together on a lot of things. So he is also, if there was somebody that was going to, like if I had to credit somebody as a cinematographer that wasn't me, he would be the one. Like very much a fluid relationship where it's like he can say like, I think this shot might look really cool if we do this. So he's kind of, again, like the assistant director in the most broad sense of the term, where he is just assisting me and making sure that like things run smoothly, and really, really valuable role. Then I've got basically my key grip, who's Nigel. Nigel is very familiar
Such a great
with
name.
like,
I don't know why I love that
wonderful
name.
name.
It's just great.
But he is basically focusing. He's got a lot of theater background, so like lighting, huge lighting trees for theater situations, and so he's going to be the one that is primarily in charge of like running wires, setting up those lights, sandbagging, while I'm working with the actors. If we're getting a different setup, like, again, I've known him for so long. And I think that's one thing that you'll notice is very much a through line with all the cast and crew, is that I'm very good friends with all of them. I know them super well. I know how they work. And so
That'll be
I don't
so
have
helpful.
anyone on set who is like, I'm just like who's kind of a mixed bag, or who I don't know very well.
Yeah.
So that's really helpful to just be able to say to Nigel, like, okay, here, this next setup is this, and I know for a fact that he'll know exactly what to do. Go and set that up. I can sit there, work with the actors, frame up the shot while he's doing the lighting. And then I've got our sound guy, Evan, who's again, I've known Evan since we were in kindergarten. We've made like we always made when we were kids, like our first movies together. And he is like a really great location sound.
What equipment will he be using?
He's going to be using the F6, which is
which I've got as well.
32-bit
The
float,
Zoom F6, yes.
Which will be, I'm sure there'll be more than one situation where that 32-bit float will save our asses.
Yeah, for sure.
And he'll just, we'll have 2 lavs on each actor, 2 lavs on the actors, not 2 lavs on each.
On each, right? One on each, yes.
And then a boom. So very simple sound setup. There'll be, really 3 sources for all the scenes. So should be pretty good.
Because it is worth. It is worth. I always feel like it's good to take a moment to kind of reiterate this, just for people kind of starting out. It's easy sometimes to overlook the importance of sound.
Oh yes.
Because we are so focused on the visual as filmmakers. It's usually that's kind of how we orientate ourselves to the world. It's we're visual kind of thinkers, but sound quality is, I can't tell you how many projects I've been involved with it. I've had issues on my own in the very beginning, and then I was like at different various positions on other people's projects and had same challenges where you'll just work your butt off and you'll get home and the sound will just be subpar and will ruin it. And your error, the margin for error in sound is really, really small.
Sound is much more objective than visuals are,
and people won't tolerate bad sound. If you've got bad sound, then you're just going to lose your audience. People can tolerate some kind of issues with visuals much more readily than they can with audio. So definitely don't skimp on audio. And it's just, you can't do that yourself. You've got to have at least one person and hopefully a couple. But good. Okay, so you've got your sound guy.
Yeah.
All right.
And then the rest of the people that are working on it are more so just like, not necessarily production assistants.
General purpose.
Like general purpose, yeah. Like, so Julia, who's actually Adam's girlfriend, who is kind of my right-hand man there. She's going to be basically drafting up like the Excel documents of like, this shot is good, like what we shot today. And then I've got people there that are really just, I've got a BTS photographer, Laura, and videographer, so she's going to be able to capture a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, which to me was really important because I want to be able to use this as almost a teaching as well, like to kind of go through, perhaps it'll all go horribly, but at least I'll get that on camera.
Hey, and you know what? It would be a good learning experience regardless. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think, again, the one thing that I've learned in prepping this, and I've got the production Bible like right over there, and it's, thick,
yeah,
is that like you hear horror stories about people's first features all the time, and the reason that I am not very stressed about it, and I'm very cautious of things, and I'm preparing for backups of fail safes, but the reason that I'm not like up in cold sweats at night about it is because I've done what I was talking to Rio about, who's been in some of my short films before, is I was like, a lot of those short films that we made were probably more difficult shoots than this will be, because this is so planned and prepared,
right?
And because we've got crew there, whereas beforehand it would have just been like me and two other people just trying to like throw together some lights in a car, drive out somewhere late at night and get a shot. Now it's like we own the locations that we're going to for more than enough time that we need them. There's no time constraints on us. And the other thing, again, is that like I've prepared it all to hell. I've got 2 shot lists. I've got the one master shot list, and then I've got a day-to-day shot list of the order of the shots we'll be shooting, and I can use those to kind of cross-reference each other. So it's like making sure that every shot is gotten. That was one thing that I always, whenever I teach a film class, I always like really, really kind of harp on shot lists as being like one of the best tools for low-budget filmmaking, because there's nothing worse than shooting a scene, getting home in the edit, and being like, that makes no sense.
You've got no place to
because there's nowhere to cut that. That cut does not work. And so building a shot list and knowing that you have everything, and occasionally a little bit of extra, is just such a stress relief. It's so great to have that. And I've got, the other thing is that like, because I've kind of worn all the producer hats on this, I've got an executive producer that's working with me, but a lot of the work in terms of like costuming and locations and things like that, I've done myself.
Yeah.
I think that this.
Well, that was what I was going to ask just real quick. So as far as like production design, costuming, hair and makeup, do you have people that are going to help with that? Or
so the moments, so I've got one makeup artist coming in for a day, for like there's like a kind of more effects heavy sequence.
Okay.
And she's going to be there for that.
Other than that, you'll have your leads do their own hair and makeup,
so other than that, it'll just be very just basic. There's very little that'll have to be done.
And then
wardrobe,
just kind of
basic wash. Wardrobe was I bought all the clothes. I actually so we talked about what they should wear and stuff like that.
So you worked with the actors, and you in conjunction you kind of came together to the wardrobe. Okay.
And then another big part of that though too is ease of wardrobe. Like everything for me when I'm doing things like that is about efficiency. So there's a scene, there's 2 days that take place where there's like 2 scenes that kind of take place in the same location outdoors, in a different location that we're going to be shooting. And so I was like, okay, those 2 days costumes are going to be very similar. Like it'll just be like a cardigan on one day and then no cardigan on the next day. So that way, when we're on that location, you don't have to go off and change. You just pull off that cardigan and that's your next day's costume.
Okay.
And so it's like things like that to just keep things really efficient, to keep things really like easy, and to make sure that, and so then even things like there's like a, very minor blood effects. And so I've got like 4 pairs of that day's costumes, so that if the blood effects go wrong, take those clothes off, throw on the same exact stuff.
Yeah, and those are important things to note, because sometimes it's easy, it's when you're on such a small budget and you're on such a tight time frame, it's unlikely that you're going to have a singular position that's going to be wardrobe or costume designer, especially, because you're going to be getting off the rack stuff, or you might even be having your actors bring in wardrobe of their own. If it's not wardrobe that's going to be damaged in the filming, like your effects shot. What about production design? I know that you scouted the location, and your primary location is this house, and so I'm assuming that most of your production design is going to be included in the house that you've rented.
Again, the house is so beautiful.
But was there
I can't even describe it.
Was there anything else that you did? I assume then you probably did whatever production design exists. You did that. It sounds like.
Yes, yeah. It's very light. Again, mostly just like moving furniture around to make sure that things work, and
so not a lot of props. You didn't have to have.
No, there are a few like props wise. There's a few things that I bought. That will be used, and of course getting like multiples of those and different versions of them for different moments. It's kind of like a little mini Warner Brothers like studio tour, where they show you the different baseball bats. But
right.
But things like that, where it's just, again, to keep everything simple and to make sure that like the less things that can go wrong, the less things that can like be forgotten or screwed up or may not work, the better. So I'm basically primarily just keeping things as simple as possible.
Right.
And
Well, that's smart. I mean, that's because you don't have a lot of room for error. And, on your first feature, the idea is to just get away with the film. And you go from there. If you don't get away with the film, then, you've got nothing, regardless of how good it was. So, well, good on you. So you're done with your rehearsal process. Are you pretty much done with pre-production? Are you getting ready to...
Yeah, we're shooting on, I think it's 4 days from now is our first shoot.
Excellent. Okay,
4 or 5 days. Yeah.
So it'll be fun after we'll revisit after you've been in production for a little bit, if you can sneak away and
of course, yeah.
And then we'll kind of we'll follow you through production, and I'll be interested to hear about how you feel like your blocking and your the rehearsal process with the viewfinder and the shots that you set up, the work with your actors. I'll be really excited to hear how all that's going.
Yeah, how that plays out. Yeah.
And then I'm assuming, you tell me, but I'm assuming you're probably editing and color correcting. Is that correct?
Yeah. So the color process is something that I've been working on for like years.
Yeah, you've been
using that.
We'll definitely go into a lot of that because I think you've got some really great information to share. I mean, you really are educated in that, and you'll be doing your editing. And what about your sound design?
So sound mix, I actually
mix.
I'm very lucky to know my cousin, who is a really accomplished sound designer, did The Witch, the Robert Eggers movie, and things like that. And he's not going to be doing it himself, but he's going to be getting another industry professional that he knows. He primarily does scoring now, so he's kind of out of the sound mixing game, but he's going to get me somebody. And then score, as in the music. It's a good friend of mine, Catherine Petkovsky, who's done 2 other short films of mine.
Okay.
And we've always really gelled really well together. And she's one of those people that will, I'll just have to kind of show her the visuals, and she'll come up with a song, send it to me, and I'll be like, that is exactly what I want.
Oh, fantastic.
So she's incredibly talented and
excellent.
Again, one of those people that you just kind of have one word and works out really well.
Well, it sounds like you've got a lot of bases covered. You know everybody you're working with. You've worked with them for a long time. That's going to be fantastic. Do you have a goal, a time frame for when you'd like to have the final edit, final cut done, ready to rock?
Yeah, so we are. So it's 11 days, as I said, 11 shoot days, and it goes from, I think, July 4th is really our first official shoot day to August 7th. And then I'm planning on doing the post throughout the entire fall. We're probably going to do some post-production crowdfunding. And then I'm hoping that the final cut will be done around December, or at least a final cut that I can show at a premiere.
Okay.
And perhaps get feedback from there. Make final changes that then get sent off to festivals. So
we can follow through that, because that'll be another. It's not just when you get the film finished. That's where you're beginning an entirely new part of this process that often can be much harder and take even longer.
The hellish marketing process,
which is trying to find distribution and trying to have your film find an audience. So excellent. Well, that fantastic. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your experience now. I'll look forward to following you as you go through your journey on your very first feature film. That's exciting.
Yeah.
You only get one first.
Yep, exactly.
Excellent.
So hopefully it's good.
Yeah. I think you've got a really good shot at it being excellent. So, all right, Cullen. Well, thank you so much. This will wrap up our special edition. This is our first special episode. It's exciting. So we'll look forward to talking to you again after you've been in production for a bit. Until next time, thank you everybody for listening. Hope this has been entertaining and maybe even a little bit informative. We'll see you guys next time. Take care.
Bye-bye.